Tim Petrowich for Dateline Marion, and we're here as usual with Marion head football coach Kerry Martin as we head into week 5 of the regular season. Coach, last week Wildcats opened with a big conference win, 55-36 over Cahokia, and it was definitely a game for those who loved offense.
A lot of offense. It's good to see the offense get on track. It's good to see the offense have a lot of kids contribute. Good to see the offense have an offensive line that really played its most consistent game, though Coach Skeet would tell you they still got a long way to go. But it was a good performance, I think, by our offensive group, and I think it was a really unselfish performance. One of the things that we commented on that we liked during film session was how well the kids played away from the ball. When the ball went to the right, the guys on the left still ran routes the way they should and blocked the way they should on the backside. And this felt like it was a really unselfish team kind of performance by the offense. And the defense played pretty dang well until late in the game when they gave up we had 3 scores late and they got back in the ball game. But to the point where it was 41-14, I think in the fourth quarter, it looked like a pretty good defensive night, and they unleashed some pretty big yardage in the last 8-9 minutes of the game. But good to get out of Cahokia with a victory, and got out of there pretty healthy, so it's a good sign.
One of the things that they showed in that fourth quarter, and the thing we talk about all the time, is that no matter what the situation is, they're one play away from scoring. And they got a kind of a big play to cap off a drive to start their comeback, and then after they recovered the onside kick in the fourth quarter, it took them one play to score again. So they showed that capability of being able to score just like that.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about it last week, and we said 2 things. First of all, they can score at any time, anywhere on the field with one play, and they score in bunches. Cahokia tends to score their points, at least in our history with them, in bunches. So they'll score, hold you, score, or hold, get a pick, score. I mean, they can put up 14 to 21 points in the blink of an eye. It's exactly what we saw. And I thought we had made it through the night without doing that. And then midway fourth quarter, they cut loose with 2 or 3 big scores in just a moment. So the last 2 came really close together, like you said. So it's very typical of Cahokia to play and score in that manner. That's kind of what they've always done.
Well, the point, it was 41-14. They got the touchdown, recovered the kick. They scored 2 touchdowns in about 15 seconds. At that point, how nervous is Coach Martin?
Well, we were turning around looking at a lot of other guys to work other guys in the game and pull some of our starters out. And we loved the opportunity to get other people in and get a look at them, get some experience. And then when they went onside score, we had to kind of rethink that a little bit, and then we were able to eventually get most of them in, but probably 5 to 7 minutes later in the game than we wanted to.
Now, the one thing you did was that you showed that your team has capability of quick scores. After they scored those 2 touchdowns, cut it to 11 points, it was 41-30. You got 2 touchdowns, and it took you 4 plays to score 2 touchdowns. 2 back-to-back 2-play drives, the 50-yard run by Isaac on one, and the 72-yard run by Jaden Lacey on the other one.
Yeah, it's a good thing to be able to match Cahokia scores for scores that quickly, because that's not something we've always had the ability to do, so the kids did a great job. The offense did of going out and answering the call. We call it the fireman's mentality. Firemen don't complain about how the fire started on the way there. They just go put it out. And so we tell our offensive and defensive personnel, if we get a turnover or something happens, don't complain, just go put the fire out. And I think our offense went out and put the fire out. It was really good.
Well, and I think throughout the night, you knew that, even if they did score, as long as you got the ball back in your hands, you were capable of scoring too.
We felt like that. I don't know how many times. I think we punted at least once, maybe only once.
I think that was it.
And that drive started with a holding penalty, which set us back from the beginning. But outside of that, I think we scored on most every drive, unless I don't think we had a turnover in the ball game. So that was a good sign. So there were a lot of things to build on and continue to improve at, but I think it's nice for our kids to be able to see what we're capable of doing when we play team, unselfish, good physical football. And so it was a night where you go into Cahokia, which is a tough place to play. Field conditions aren't always real good, and our kids handled that pretty well and got out of there with a good win.
Now, one of the reasons I like this time is because right after the game, there's deadlines, everybody's in a hurry, you kind of overlook some things. Something I wanted to bring up, something I noticed during the early part of the game was you really tried and did, I thought, a good job of establishing Adolph Paulson in the backfield. He got some nice yardage for you in the first quarter on those first couple drives, and it really kind of took some pressure off of Braden.
He did. He became a real threat in the ball game, and he was a late starter with Kyle Hughes being out with an injury or an ailment, I should say. And Adolph was kind of a place for us, but was not been a starter on offense yet. And he certainly had an impact, I think, catching a screen pass early in the game and making some good hard runs. And he's a tough player. He's not very big, but he's a tough football player who'll do anything you ask him to do. And he showed he had a little playmaking ability also.
Yeah, and I think he was one of 4 backs you had running the ball that had more than 50 yards.
Wow.
You had him, you had Jaden with the long run, Isaac, who had almost 100, and then Ziegler, who he was Braden Ziegler.
He was. He had a good night. It was good to see him get on track and break that 100-yard mark. And he's tough, in short yardage. He's tough at the goal line. And the guys enjoy watching him run, and I was glad to see Jaden continue some big plays that he's been getting. But you're right, Adolph was kind of the surprise of the night. Not so much to all of us that watch him every day at practice, but I think to a lot of the fans who've not seen Adolph play a lot of offense, they might have been pleasantly surprised by what they saw.
Talk about we talk about the big run late in the game by Jaden, but I think even bigger was a tight game. I think it was 15-14, and he got that touchdown catch late in the first half on I think it was a fourth and long. And it was 19-yard touchdown pass that he caught in a crowd.
He did. We shot ourselves in the foot in that drive, and we went from 3rd and goal to 4th and forever. It's looked like forever after you've been down there inside the 10, and we ran a little vertical scheme, and Isaac made a nice read and put the ball up a place where he could make a play, and Jaden went up and made a play, and it was a huge score right before half, so it was big.
We're going to shift our attention now. You've got Mount Vernon. You're on the road at Mount Vernon. Again, it's you think about Marion Carbondale, you think about Marion Heron. Marion Mount Vernon is a pretty good rivalry.
That's some great games, and it doesn't matter who the better team is record-wise going into the game always seems to be a really even match. We've been the team chasing Mount Vernon before. They chased us before. One year they came in here 0-4 and almost beat us, one of Coach Shaner's first years. So we're not looking past anybody. We have a lot of respect for our opponents. We have a lot of respect for the South 7 Conference, and we always tell the kids the difficulty of the game lies more in the way you play than who your opponent is. So we feel like whether it's Althoff or Centralia or Mount Vernon or Carbondale or Cahokia, doesn't matter who we're playing, we have to take care of Marion first and foremost. And if we play well, we give ourselves a chance to win. If we don't play well, we got a chance to lose every one of these games or any of these games. So we found that out with a Cahokia team that didn't come in with a great record either, but they proved to be a very worthy opponent. Mount Vernon will too. They're playing at home. Their backs are against the wall. They need a win. And everybody would like a piece of us. So we know that.
And I think the last time you went up there, it was a similar situation, and the game wound up going to overtime after you fell behind a couple touchdowns early on.
I think we were actually chasing them a bit at this time. I think we were 2-2 and they were 3-1, if I remember right at that time. And we needed the victory badly. And we got them in overtime, but both teams ended up going to the playoffs. I have a lot of respect, like I said, for the Mount Vernon program and for Coach Shaner, and I know he'll have a great game plan for us, and we got to be ready.
I think maybe they've been snake bit a little bit too, because they had of the 3 losses, a couple of them been really close. They lost to Triad when they couldn't convert on touchdowns. They lost 14-12. Of course, everyone's going to struggle with Althoff, but they've been a little bit snake bit, and so they're right there in some of these games, which makes them more dangerous.
They are. They've lost 3 of their 3 losses have come to the hands of undefeated football teams, I believe. Taylorville, Triad, and Althoff. So it's not always your record, it's who you've played to get that record. And so I feel like they're still a very good football team, and they're going to battle us to the end.
Is it going to be similar to what we've seen? I know they've got the Rush, who is a very good runner, and they try to put the ball in his hands a lot. Is it going to be mostly a running team? Will they pass a little bit?
Yeah, they're a running team. I think that's just kind of what they do, and they do it well. They're a jet sweep, inside veer kind of football team, and they've got you chasing the jet motion, and if you overreact to it, they'll run counters and boots off of it, and that's kind of what they do, and they do it very well, and they put some points and yardage up on us the last few years. So we're working hard to try to do a better job of shutting down what they do and getting the ball back to our offense, and hopefully we can put some points on the board and put pressure on them.
And defensively this year, you've been fairly effective in shutting down some of the running games. Except for a couple of big runs by the kid from Galesburg, you pretty much shut him down. You've done that, so it'd be good to give your defense a good challenge like this, see how they can do it.
Yeah, they had a lot to do with the Galesburg win, and they had a lot to do with the Centennial win against a good offensive team. And they've given up some yardage, but they've not always given up. They've been key in key situations, and we talk about bend but don't break, and they have held strong and done some stuff inside the red zone on fourth down for us this year, and made some big plays on turnovers. And I think they had four turnovers last week. We had 0 on offense. We got 4 on defense, and that's a pretty good night when you can do that. And I'm hoping they can continue being opportunistic.
You mentioned the defense, and one of the things I saw was that Aaron Porter is starting to make some big defensive plays. Not only he got an interception, but he broke up a couple of passes, one in the end zone that was huge.
Yeah, he is. He's really matured into an excellent football player, and we've even used him on offense quite a bit this year to stretch the field a little bit. He's our fastest player, and he's placed in state in the 400-meter dash, so he can run. I mean, when you're competing against the Cahokias and schools that size and performing the way he performs, he can run. And so we're trying to utilize that speed a bit on offense and at least make a threat that people got to worry about. So, I feel like he's another guy like Adolph we're trying to include in the offensive scheme to give us, take some pressure off Zig and Isaac, and now we're adding Jaden to the mix, and so we know Seth Bear can play, and Dylan Simpson has had a big catch in almost every ball game we've had this year. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to do a lot to get a lot of the ball in the hands of a lot of people and be hard to defend.
A couple of things that stood out in the game that people are maybe going to ask questions about, and maybe it's simple answers, maybe it's not. First of all, notice that David Fletcher handled a few of the extra points last week.
He did. It's an ongoing competition like anything. We try to reward players for things they do well in practice and in games, and Mitch has done a great job kicking for us, but David maybe he's been a little bit better in practice, and we thought deserved an opportunity to kick.
Also saw a couple times in the orange package, especially I think a couple times when you ran 2-point conversions and down near the goal line, that Chad was in a quarterback.
Jake.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's one of those things where Jake and David will be our quarterbacks next year, and then unlike some seasons where your backup quarterback is playing a receiver spot or a defensive position, we just feel like Jake is too good of an athlete not to put him on the field somewhere. We've got to get him on the field, and one of the things he does well is he runs the ball well, and he's a good off play action, and we told Isaac this is a chance for us to get him on the field and get him some experience, because if he does win the starting job next year, the last thing I want is the opening ball game the first time he's played quarterback.
Sure.
It's good to see him out there in pressure situations in big ball games leading that offense. And so I don't know that he'll play every down in our short yardage offense or our tight offense as we call it, but certainly we hope to get him on the field every week so that experience continues to grow and his confidence grows and he can kind of play that into next season.
Last question I have to ask is, and this has been a week-to-week thing, is Xavier still week-to-week? Is he going to be ready to play?
I think this will be his first week to play. I think he'll play limited snaps. He's not in football shape per se, but he's been practicing for a while, getting some minimal reps in, but we hope to use him this week. Hopefully you'll see him out on the field. He could be a huge addition to us, but we want to ease him back so that when he is 100%, which he's very close, he'll be able to really have the impact I think he could have had all year long if he'd stayed healthy. So we'll see what happens.
How frustrating do you think it is to him? Because it's not like he got hurt in a game. He got hurt in practice before the first game. So I'm sure he's been itching to get in there.
Yeah, he has been. He's been a little down about it, as he wants to play. And he was booked as a defensive starter and certainly an offensive contributor big time. He and Zig were going to do some trading off in the backfield like they did last year. And boy, he could really be a weapon for us. He's got a lot of ability. He can block well. He catches the ball. He runs the ball. He's a dual threat out of the backfield. So we're anxious to get him on the field.
And as good as he is on offense, I think he's even better on defense.
Yeah, at least he was during training camp. I mean, in camp in our first week before he got hurt, he's a guy as an offensive coach going against our defense. I was looking to run the other way or find ways around him. He really had an impact on defense, much even bigger than he did last year as a sophomore. So we were excited to see and anticipate what he was going to bring. I don't know how much defense he'll play this week. He may play some. I think we'll start him getting snaps on offense, and then hopefully by the Althoff game, he's back in there on both sides.
This is your third week in a row being on the road. 7-hour trip, a 2-hour trip. Dadgum, Coach, this one's only 35 minutes.
No, should we go dressed? I mean, I don't know. It's just it's interesting, when you do. It's all about perspective, and the distance you travel is about how far you travel prior to that. And so, we're looking forward to it. You get in kind of a rhythm when you travel. It's not all bad having 3 in a row because we kind of have a system for it, and just a little shorter drive this time, and the kids have handled that well. So we look forward to a great night up there at a nice stadium and play a worthy opponent.
All right, it's Marion against Mount Vernon in Mount Vernon Friday night. Kickoff at 7 o'clock. That's Coach Kerry Martin for Dateline Marion. I'm Tim Petrowich.